Hello, everybody. Hi, Art. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Pretty well. It's like quite an effective day.
Yes.
What about yourself?
Doing well. I'm all energized and ready to talk about resilience.
Wonderful. I guess we have a quite impressive audience with
Hmm.
us today on the line, and we have plenty of things to discuss. So
Yep.
I would rather start with the screen sharing,
Yeah.
and let's first set a agenda and expectations to our audience. So we will we want to make it all quite generic to let people also understand the big stones that should be a part of uh, cyber resilience program, but also we want to make it practical. So we would appreciate if audience can ask more questions in the chat, in the chat, and both of us, Art and me, try to uh, add uh, cases from our practical experience as well as
Mm.
cases from public, well-known cases, which will, I guess, articulate to your heart about why resiliency really matters and why it's different from just implementing NIST framework or other things like that. And also, when you're building something, it's very important to use reliable methodology, but but not to reinvent the wheel, because there are things that other smart people already in the world, like they reinvented it, they already created it. So Art will focus in this discussion on MITRE cyber resiliency framework. I will focus on a Gartner Forest adaptive framework, and we'll also, if we have a spare minute, we'll speak about MDR and PBR if we have that time. So
Yep.
let's start about presenting our speakers.
Hmm.
Uh, like we have a really phenomenal and very famous, very smart and uh, professional who have a ton of practical experience in the field. Art Kane. Art, maybe you can add something more about your background, your story.
Yeah, yeah. Right now I'm at Arium and am handling really the CISO and CIO type tasks there, as well as leading incident response. We are on the front lines with ransomware incident response and have been for the last 5 years. And I've come from an IT background and progressed into cybersecurity and really have glommed on to cybersecurity and incident response. So resilience and failures to be resilient are things that I see every day. All right, and here's Nazar. Obviously, a lot of you who have signed up know who he is, but he's the CEO of Under Defense. Nazar, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my story was started also with IT, because IT is like the fundament of this pyramid, and like cybersecurity is like the stone based on the IT. And I was lucky to start my journey in offensive security and develop uh, like create a business which actually primarily focus on a defensive cybersecurity, and things like DevSecOps, like security software engineering, is things that are uh, fundamentals for my history, for my background. And I'm really happy to have you with me today on this call, because we have very similar experience,
Mhm.
and we operate at different frameworks, but still it's very good to share our experience with the audience. Uh,
Exactly.
Aram, maybe you can present, or maybe you can present Aram to the audience as well. What you are best at?
Yeah, yeah. So really, when we're talking about incident response and we're talking about post breach recovery, Arium is really focused there. Really, half of our company is focused on incident response and post-breach recovery. The other half is an MSP. We're a managed service provider. Arium was formed to be, mergers and acquisitions, acquired 6 MSPs and MSSPs, and put them together
Wow.
to make really kind of a super MSP that is able to be agile and pivot and handle our customers' needs in a more effective way. But we are heavily involved in incident response. Every year we're doing over 100 incidents. We have over 50,000 hours in incident response on ransomware incidents, and we've rebuilt and restored over 25,000 servers. So it is core to what we do is dealing with this cyber resilience right now.
It is a plenty of cases. It's a plenty of experience. Terrific. I, I was lucky to build under the fence, and like our primary specialization is managed detection response. So we taking care to make sure that customers who have been under attack and who want to make sure that it will never happen to them, they implementing they bring vendors for MDR. So we build a platform called Maxi. We're protecting right now around 65,000 endpoints all across the globe in US, in Canada, and Europe. And we specialize in SIEM, SOAR, EDR, XDR, like everything around security automation, like Python and scripting, coding, automation is a part of our DNA. We are number one in the list of Comparitech as a managed SIEM provider, and I'm very proud of my team who managed to finalize number 6 on a bosses of competition in from Splunk in 2022. So we every year we are trying to get the higher rank there. All right. Let me give you the floor to talk about the cyber resiliency, because there is a great statement about this situation.
Yeah. So from what we're seeing historically, as well as all the breach reports that are coming out, is really everyone is experiencing cyber attacks of some kind. Whether it's business email compromise or some other malware or a phishing attack, everyone is experiencing cyber attacks. If not, at least several a year. It can be daily. But most companies will also experience ransomware of some kind. If it hasn't happened yet, it will. It's just you are in the target life cycle somewhere. What we're seeing though is that most people that experience ransomware have recovery problems. They were woefully unprepared for the attack. Their defense controls, etc., were not in place, and they had no way to bounce back. They were thinking kind of in an old school backup and recovery mindset, and those backups were destroyed by ransomware, and there's actually no way to recover. What we're seeing is people that even think that, okay, I really have a lot of recovery paths, I have a DR site, etc., that's gone after ransomware. So your ways of getting back up and running are really handicapped.
And I want to add to this that I often hearing this thing that, oh well, we'll make sure that it will never happen, like that that hackers shall not pass, and like we have terrific technologies like CrowdStrike, Sentinel-1, which is actually a terrific technologies,
Hmm.
but tools always can be fooled. And
Hmm.
nowadays, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yep.
And the difference between the good and bad companies is in a way how they react in an incident, because every company can be hacked.
Yes.
Microsoft has been hacked. Like Google has been hacked. But good companies can quickly discover that they are under attack, and there is like somebody who is like sneaking their network, and they can spot and localize and eradicate the malicious actor out of the network, and the bad companies wouldn't even know until they get the ransomware node.
Right.
So it's about like combining proactive and reactive approach. And like for me, cyber resiliency is about being proactive, planning what will happen in a worst case scenario and preparing to that worst case scenario.
Absolutely. Cyber resilience is expecting to get attacked. It's you are getting attacked. There are incidents happening. The threat actor is gaining access to certain resources on your network. How do you maintain your business? How do you maintain your critical systems to be able to sustain that attack and keep business operations running?
Okay, there is, yeah, you can see my screen.
Yes.
There is the QR code which you can scan by your phone, and we are really keen to hear from our audience regarding the controls that they are putting in place to increase their cyber resiliency and to understand what is already part of the program, what people plan or could add to their portfolio.
Absolutely. Yeah, everybody vote. And feel free to drop things in the comments as well. I'm curious to read in the comments, those of you who might think you have a great backup solution for recovery and whether that backup solution is immutable. So feel free to drop that in the comments.
And it is also about there is many new gen technologies which people like introducing to their organization, but it is also about like planning use cases and planning that scenarios when you can prepare the reaction for some specific events. As example, you may be notified by some threat intelligence organizations about the enemy right inside your castle. So like if you know, if your MSP, if your IT staff, if they knew how to identify if you have these connections to C2 server, if you can spot that there is anomaly during your night shift inside your network, that somebody is trying to exfiltrate data. If you have tools inside your network which can monitor your north, south, and west, east traffic and spot that there is like anomalies, that there is a spike in SMB activity, and if there is somebody who is uploading something to Google Drive or Dropbox. So this is some of the things that can be really, really helpful.
Absolutely.
I see that just a 50% of audience have endpoint detection response solutions, and 50 have intrusion detection systems. Interesting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
meanwhile, we have like 67% of people who have a SIEM, which is quite unusual.
Right.
Because like SIEM, often it's a cherry on a cake.
Yes.
It's a thing that more mature organization adding later on in their customer journey. All right. Yeah, please go. Like you wanted to add something.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Usually, EDR is now. I consider that part of your standard toolkit. If you're an organization that doesn't have MFA on all users, on all internet-facing services, VPN, email, and everything, and you don't have EDR, and you don't have an immutable cloud backup solution, so basically a backup copy of your stuff outside of your network in immutable storage, so that you can recover quickly. Those are the three factors that I'm considering important for resilience at this point. So, seeing that only 50% had EDR deployed was a surprise.
Absolutely agree with you. One of the things that I absolutely have to mention is that one of the key responsibilities like chief information security officer or head of IT who have some security responsibility on their shoulders is to actually to understand what data is critical for business operation, for like what data, if gone, will create this business interruption case.
Hmm.
So like putting a priority for recovery exactly on that specific systems or like data platforms.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think the next slide is going to speak to that a little bit, but if we're talking about all the things that are involved in kind of that agile cybersecurity and cyber readiness and resilience, if we're thinking about that, really one of the things that everyone needs is to understand what your assets are. It's an inventory of your stuff, and understanding what your critical assets and systems are, where your crown jewels are, and as Nassar was talking, that's understanding really what your important, what your crown jewels and what your important data are, is, so that when that's part of the preparation phase over here under process, is getting that information together. You should have that together before you're breached. You should understand before this happens what you need to recover, you know uh, or else you're just recovering blindly. You don't really know what's going to have the biggest impact on your business when you're recovering.
and to achieve this, you need to actually uh, get out of the room and open your calendar and arrange meetings with people who are who really knew the business
Mm,
and could provide these answers. What data are critical for us?
mhm,
What you think we should recover first to continue a business operation in a worst case scenario,
mhm.
uh, and without collecting this information from all the key stakeholders in the organization, without correlating these answers, you
Yep.
wouldn't be able to find truth, because like very often I have seen that uh, senior security leaders relying on only like one person, while there is other people in the room who are not that loud, but
Yes.
who do like this tiny things that if missing, it will not let your engine to restart.
Yeah, that's that short feedback loop that we were discussing personally, but before the webinar, and Azar, is that you really have to have collaborative feedback loops with parts of the business. When you're managing security, you're going to present yourself as the enemy of the business unless you're becoming an ally with them and collaborating with them and understanding really where they're coming from, so that you can know what to protect. And that'll help you with the people part of this pyramid here on the screen. When you're coming up with that DR plan, that disaster recovery plan, and when you're coming up with that incident response plan, you need to collaborate with everybody and understand what you have. But when you're actually training them and you're doing tabletop exercises and you're doing, you're walking them through the plan, that collaboration and that feedback is going to come back to you again. Is you're going to hear from them, oh, well, we're not protecting this system. This is really important. So it's important to work with people.
Absolutely. And as we speak about people and human factor in the cybersec, as I mentioned earlier, like almost all top brands experiences the cyber attacks. Why? Because they have money. Why? Because they are a great target. Why? Because like they are big, but the size actually doesn't matter. Like what's matter, like if you have something valuable inside. And this is like a great example of Uber story. I guess everyone in cybersec have read this and remember about it. But it's about the tools and budgets. Many people complain about budgets. Many people complain that they are understaffed. But like despite having huge budgets, despite having a like top-notch tool set, despite being cloud native and like great software engineers, developers, like we still see that uh, like shit happens.
Hmm.
It happens.
Yep.
It's about the like readiness of the company to 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 prepare to the worst case scenario. And we see on these slides like screenshots from that known Uber story where the malicious actor managed to sneak in through social engineering, getting access to VPN, like bypassing 2FA, and discovering the hard-coded credentials, like obviously hard-coded credentials in a PowerShell script, and then like taking over all the admin privileges in the network. And like the most interesting part is that like many companies can, like, without who don't have a 24/7 managed detection response, 24/7 security operations center, people who watching their back, like these people wouldn't even know that they have been breached, because anomalies in the user behavior, anomalies in access, and things like that. This is the only signals that let you know that something is going on. There is some
Hmm.
anomaly. There is needle in a haystack, and like you need smart people who can actually detect these things. Otherwise, attackers will just announce that the conference data and other things are already gone. And it's about the intellectual property. It's about the source code. It's about the trade secrets. So like we see on this slide that like the reaction of the firm, that they were sending these text messages to their employees, and we see like the attacker interview screenshots from Telegram, as far as I remember, and like what attacker was thinking about this failure, because for them it was like about really ridiculousness of the situation. Um, like one of the most interesting things is that like competent malicious actor will go first after uh, the highest privileges,
Hmm.
and they try to exfiltrate some data first with privileges they have, but obviously they wanted to gain control over all your tools and whitelisting themselves. So we see that like despite people believe that tools can solve the problem, unfortunately not. Malicious actors can take control over your security controls, over your stack, over your cloud infrastructure.
Hmm.
So like there is no immunity for everyone. And
Yeah.
most of our firms, we have our own IR plans, and we
Hmm.
preparing to, to, to the worst. Um, Art, maybe you can elaborate more
Yeah, I think
about this.
one of the things that's really interesting is that the security controls are the things that you see that they attacked. Tycotic, is a PAM solution that's holding your privileged passwords and access to systems and secret keys and everything. So Tycotic Secret Server is, in my mind, I deploy it as a security control, something that's supposed to keep me safe. But because they were loose with an admin password in a PowerShell script, that allowed the threat actors to gain access to all of their passwords, and then taking over AWS, taking over the Sentinel One dashboard. So they're attacking the critical infrastructure of the company. They're not just after exfiltrating data. They're trying to own everything.
Absolutely. And it's about, again, it's about the human factor. Like,
Hmm.
guess what? Like, I bet these guys have like things like no before.
Hmm.
I guess these guys have like SIEM, or at least like we have seen they have Amazon Security Hub, they have
Hmm.
Sentinel One, like they have something on the network protection, but still it's about the preparedness to react, communicate, recover, and respond. And like one of the things that I personally found interesting from that case, I remember a lot of LinkedIn posts that Uber, after that breach, they like posted really like a bunch of like 6 or 16 new positions for a cybersec, for people inside their like security operations center to actually watch the threats in the 24/7 mode. But I remember in our preparation, you mentioned about Zoom as a really great example of company who managed to succeed in a like transformation during COVID. Maybe you can elaborate more on the story.
Yeah, so Zoom has been preparing in a resilient manner all along, well before COVID. They've always been cloud first. They are using a, multiple deploys a day type DevOps deployment method so they can make quick, nimble, agile changes to infrastructure. And they've always been trying to improve their service. So, Zoom is kind of known for giving you the best quality of video, usually even with lower bandwidth levels. So they've always been kind of improving, and they've had an improvement life cycle. But during COVID, everyone moved to Zoom. It was everybody's home, so everybody had to use Zoom for work, for school, for everything. It was critical infrastructure all of a sudden. So as such, all the threat actors were attacking it. People were hijacking Zoom sessions. People were it was under constant attack, and there were some brief outages, but not huge. But they are a perfect example of resilience because they're able to bounce back, redeploy, deploy new code, pivot, thwart attacks, and keep critical services running despite constant attack from threat actors. They were the attack target during COVID, and because everybody's using them, and they were able to defend while keeping business services running. So they are the kind of pinnacle example to me of a company that has achieved cyber resilience and has really engineered for it with their cloud infrastructure, has engineered in their cyber response, in their development lifecycle, their ability to change code and fix problems as they're happening. They are exactly what we should aim to be.
That, yes, so it is feasible.
Mhm.
And like many will ask us, okay, guys, like there is a nice CSF, and like for example, we experience that like many customers are asking about nice CSF. Many organization uh, like knew only about NIST and heavily rely uh, on it. Like Art, like from your perspective, why NIST is not perfect for actually solving the cyber resiliency program mission?
Right. So cyber resilience is a little bit different from cybersecurity. So cyber resilience is a combination of cybersecurity and IT and adaptation to attack, and so that you can stay up and running. Cybersecurity framework by NIST is a great set of IT and security controls to provide really a baseline, and it's a good way to measure your maturity as an organization against cybersecurity controls. But what it's not great at is adapting to attack. If you think about really the life cycle, you're identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, but then you're going right back into identify and detect again. There's no adaptation. There's no after I've recovered, I'm learning from my attacker and figuring out what to patch up later. It's you're in a constant identify and respond mode with CSF, and there's no improvement. So that's why I would say that cyber resilience adds improvement to the idea of just static cybersecurity.
And malicious actors, they can also open this, like protocols, read through it, and say, okay, like this is the next thing that this IT like dummy IT stuff will do to like eradicate us from the network. Like so, we should try to inject somewhere there. So it's
Right.
about really agility and adoption.
Yes.
Um, so like new times demand and new solutions, and like Art is really an expert in the MITRE cyber resiliency framework,
hmm
so let's focus there.
Yeah. So most of you have heard of MITRE ATT&CK. That's the real popularized part of project that MITRE has done is MITRE ATT&CK. Which is taking TTPs, organizing, normal attack behaviors of threat actors. and making it so that it's searchable, etc. That's MITRE ATT&CK. Defend is really coming up with defense mitigations for those, and there's other frameworks that MITRE's done, like Engage, which is really about cyber deception, and so there's a lot of different frameworks that MITRE has done. One of them that I love is the Cyber Resiliency Engineering Framework, which we call CREF, and it is focused around cyber resilience. It is giving you a framework of ideas to put together to make a cyber resilience plan. And so there's four, main goals: are anticipate, withstand, recover, and adapt. And so really, if you think about that, it looks a lot like NIST CSF, only with adapt at the end.
Mhm.
But what I like about this is it actually breaks it up into objectives and techniques. And one of the superpowers of this is that it will map and give you visualizations against MITRE ATT&CK. So if you know from MITRE ATT&CK, you're seeing these kind of TTPs, you're seeing these kind of attacks. These threat actors are attacking you. You can look up certain threat actors on MITRE ATT&CK. You can export that from MITRE ATT&CK and import it into CREF Navigator, and it'll give you the resilience techniques that you need to implement in order to avoid that kind of attack. So if you're, and you can use this for forward thinking, let's say you are in finance and you know that you are right now, the finance industry is being attacked by these three threat actors and they're using these kind of attacks. You can pull that up in MITRE ATT&CK, export their playbooks, basically their TTPs, and bring it over to CREF Navigator and say, okay, these are the 5 things that we need to do in order to be able to recover and adapt from an attack. So in basically, if you pull up CREF Navigator, you can, and that's at crefnavigator.mitre.org, you are able to choose any of these goals. Say I want to withstand an attack, and then it'll give you some objectives, and it'll give you technology concepts to apply. Okay, we need to put in segmentation, we need to put in active monitoring, we need to put in some substantial integrity, some things like that, and adaptive response. It'll give you the things to do to respond. And to me, in a planning mode, planning for business resilience, that's incredible, that I can say, okay, these are the common kinds of attacks that we're seeing, and this is what we need to do. And that can really form your cyber budget. Then you're like, okay, we need to improve our monitoring here, we need to improve our response, we need to improve our disaster recovery capabilities, and you've distilled it down to a handful of things using this framework. And so that's what its superpower is that it can help you brainstorm how to solve the problems for your business.
Maybe you can also like I'm not sure. Okay, it's not here. One of the things that I liked about MITRE is that like you can select the goal. So like
Hmm.
you may already have something in place, like some elements of your program ready. You may feel confident that okay, as example, I bought some things like dark trace to
Hmm.
withstand, to anticipate. I have an MDR vendor in place, but what about like my like recoverability? Like, am I ready to adapt? Like, as it like, let's try to add these elements to my program for 2024, as example.
Ab-
And
Absolutely.
when you're selecting it, like it's about the objective, so like what you wanted to transform, and about the techniques which you can utilize to actually achieve this objective.
Yeah.
Um,
If we stay on this screen for a second, like if you're thinking about just these 2 goals on the left and really this objective, and what it's giving for techniques, this is telling you coordinated protection. So that's XDR, MDR. It's really having an MSP and your internal team working together, and automation in place to be able to respond automatically to an attack. And then there's non-persistent, which is giving data platforms and systems that can be rebooted and or redeployed without the attack. So let's say your web app was attacked, the attacker has access to all of that infrastructure, being able to nuke it and redeploy it so that the persistence is gone. And if you can set that up with the coordinated protection so that that's automatic, so that in response to an attack, you are automatically redeploying your infrastructure, you're set up. So those are the kind of things it does, and it does break down definitions for all of these if you dig into it. Yep.
One of the things which I want also to return to this slide, and I know that you are a master in cloud cloud-based migration and recoverability in the cloud.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I would really appreciate if you can share with our audience like some of the stories and the practical like some of best practices that you will recommend everyone to start with.
Yeah, yeah. So if you are if you're in a cloud infrastructure and we are able to build in redundancy using cloud tools, we are able to set up your CI/CD process to deploy code to serverless infrastructure. We can pivot you quickly and get you back up and running on another cloud, on the same cloud in another tenant. There's a lot of different options here, but the more you've planned that out ahead of time to be ephemeral meaning I can just redeploy your infrastructure, the better you are. And one of the success stories we have is we had an incident come in on a Friday, thousands of servers, and they were all encrypted, every single one of them. And their backups were encrypted, their databases were encrypted, everything. It was completely complete devastation. We redeployed everything, wrote scripts to redeploy all of their servers, redeployed all their code, redeployed, reinitialized data, and we scripted the response as far as gathering forensic data, things like that, cleaning up things. We redeployed everything, and so they were up and running by Monday. So, and this was a SaaS company, so they were all cloud focused, but you know 3 days downtime for a ransomware incident that has completely devastated your entire infrastructure is unheard of. So, that kind of thing is what we're able to do when you have an infrastructure that supports that. That's really kind of that forward-thinking cyber resilience. It's we're able to redeploy everything quickly because you're already structured in that way. If you have these big old servers that you're sitting there holding together with chewing gum and rubber bands, it's really hard to defend that, and it's really hard for us to rebuild that, because you just don't have an infrastructure that's made for resilience.
But not every company is actually ready to
Yep.
go like to select that path because
Yes.
it's require like this practice.
Yeah.
Many claim that they don't have a budget.
Yep.
I remember you told me a funny story about the customer who was paying just the pennies, but
Yep. Yeah, we had a client that was paying us to manage one server. So manage and secure one server. And they had several servers and, a lot of endpoints. And, they were hit basically twice a year by ransomware. And it was a constant thing. It was just part of their rhythm. It would take them down for a month. It would be about $1 million in lost revenues and in lost, in lost productivity. It's a smaller company, a manufacturer, but they kept doing that and just kept having us manage this one server. This one server was fine every time. We were able to get that server up and running right away after the incident, but they were still down because their entire rest of their infrastructure was down. So they really weren't, even though they were constantly being penalized, basically the threat actors were constantly beating them, with ransomware. They refused to open their eyes and see that, okay, we need to start thinking about the rest of our infrastructure. Arium is just covering their ERP server, so we're getting their ERP server up and running every time, but everything else is still down. And so when you're thinking about that inventory and you're building out that, what are your prioritized systems, and you're actually kind of planning that IR and DR plan, uh, your workstations can be critical. If nobody has a workstation and is able to work, then your company's down. Other servers other than your ERP server are probably also important to your infrastructure, your domain controllers, everything else. So there's a lot going on that actually needs forethought, and that's a sad story. Like they lost millions of dollars every year, and they're still in that way. They're still in that mindset. Is that they just don't want to spend the money to fix anything. They don't want to spend the money to protect anything. So they're just going to keep being attacked.
In this specific case, we can learn like many things. It's about culture of
Hmm.
the organization. It's about the leadership of IT and cybersecurity, who can actually, like make this extra effort and convincing top management that and like showing the actual numbers, because uh, it's about like huge losses versus like really small cost. But what is good, at least they know what is critical for their like this interruption, what need to be recovered quickly. But as example from this story, what are the pillars, techniques they can, you know, pick and choose from this menu of techniques that they can apply in this case, and make a really better security for their organization.
Right. Yeah. So, in that case, I mean, there were a lot of details I didn't share in that overview, but segmentation is important. They didn't have anything segmented, so it's a wide open network. That means the threat actor was able to just run around and do whatever they wanted. Protected backup and restore. The only thing that they had protected backup and restore on was that ERP server. The rest of their infrastructure was on regular backups, which were all hit by ransomware. Analytic monitoring and adaptive response. They had no MDR, XDR, any kind of solution in place that would even see an attack happening on the rest of their infrastructure. There was, usually it was us seeing the attack on that one server that would alert them that, hey, the rest of your infrastructure is already on fire. Everything got to your crown jewels here. Those are key ones to just start with. But beyond that, if we're thinking about additional controls like dynamic positioning, being able to whether we're doing honeypots, whether we're deploying other servers, whether we're deploying their infrastructure in a way that changes in response to an attack. You see this a lot with zero trust technology, where you're able to give the attacker a different look every time, that kind of thing. And you're able to respond differently. You're able to position your response differently every time. That those kind of solutions were just not in place, and redundancy obviously was not in place. They just had a handful of servers, and they just did not protect them.
Wonderful. So what we encourage everyone to actually try to uh like take a look to MITRE cyber resiliency framework and engineering framework, and try to apply some of the things to your program for next year. Because like, but in your story, what I found really funny, like there is, I guess, Sun Tzu, the art of the war, and there
Mhm.
is like the statement, it doesn't matter how many times you have been hit, it's matter how many times you recover, how many times you was able to make it up and running again. So it's not always the best strategy, but it's a matter of choice
Mhm.
for that company, for that business.
Exactly.
um, like, and what is even, I believe, more interesting is that story, that like if we speak about the privilege restriction and segmentation, like this
Mhm.
is at least two basic proactive things, like that they can like prevent using for objective to prevent and avoid, to make sure that it will not happen, because it means that like these guys were able to constantly reuse the same or like similar techniques to sneak in. And I, like one of my colleagues today mentioned a very good statement: once a victim, always a victim.
Mhm.
And for bigger organization, for organizations who have a lot of money, like who experiences a data breach, uh, uh, like attackers who have been there once and who invested their time to like for a good reconnaissance to look around, to move laterally, like they will keep the documentation about the target, and they will try to return.
Hmm.
If we speak about the Gartner Adaptive Security Framework, it was actually introduced in 2017, as far as I remember. And like the key idea was that prevention and detections were the key pillar of traditional approach for cybersecurity. But like the things about the predicting and responding, and where the new things, that because like nowadays everyone like doing uh, everything to like prevent. So like they're introducing technologies like IDS, APS, all
Hmm.
the firewalls, and like putting everything all these controls in place, and to detect like like EDR, like email security, blah blah blah. But if we speak about the predicting, it's a very important element because it's about knowing yourself.
Hmm.
It's like also from Sensei, you need to like if you know yourself and you know your enemy, it's easy for every CISO to know their enemies, because you can read a lot of stories about similar companies from your industry who have been hit, and who really where these cases were painful. Um, and it's about the defining the use cases, knowing your employees, your users, and your weakest spots. As example, if you know that like your users will click, okay, like we need to have additional use cases to like detect the things like user impersonalization, that somebody will like if you know that like half of the organization do not use 2FA on their VPN. Well, it's a good problem to have. You can like you can enforce, but it's also about the cultural shift in it. And if you speak about the response, it's not just about investigation part, post breach recovery. It's like moreover about the retrospective analysis, and if a vendor who is doing IR uh, could adapt to organization culture and specifics, and fit into the budget to
Hmm.
suggest the things that will be like the reasonable and low hanging fruits, but also about the giving the roadmap, uh, how what security or IT leaders can do further to improve their program. Their like gives them even frameworks to like rely on to compare. Okay, like top guns in my industry using these frameworks to develop their programs. Let me make sure that like my checklist and their checklist are identical, and like we're doing everything according to best practices. Not the things that
Hmm.
just like third party vendors bringing us and okay, like take this technology, you will be 100% secure. So it's about the also like this cultural shift. I bet you will agree with me.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, when we're talking about the Gartner framework and the MITRE framework, they overlay really well and they work together. And so when we're looking here, we're looking at really, okay, we've had IT, and then cybersecurity has become popular, and really resilience is where we're at now. But none of this, none of your resilience thinking is going to mean anything without a strong IT foundation and a good cybersecurity response in there. So it's really builds on each other, and this takes a whole cultural your whole company has to be bought into this, because that this is going to touch every part of the business, and helping the business bounce back really depends upon integration with the business and the culture.
Absolutely agree with you. And it's about the like continuous feedback loop, and like you can achieve feedback loop when you're testing
Hmm.
your backups, when you're testing your failover, when you're
Absolutely.
planning things like this. Well, like you can always ask people in community. You can always ask like guys like Art or me, like about our best practices, about like your specific use case, and for like if it makes sense, if it's like what you may miss from your others.
Mm.
So we encourage you to outreach and ask for advice. You can always get the help from community.
Absolutely. Now I know that we're running light on time, and we do have some great questions here as well. So and I know we also want to explain a little bit about Under Defense Maxi as well. So I just wanted to give a heads up there.
Thanks. I will very quickly try to find which like it's a good example that there's a large fatigue problem for organizations who just like buying a tools and don't thinking about the full resiliency and like processes for handling all these incidents. I want
Hmm.
to showcase here a thing that like the things from Gartner about detect, predict, and prevent. It's about the like MDR who can actually a provider who can actually um, plan your use cases, like highlight your risks. But it's even better to get this experience after a breach, because retrospectively, like malicious actors already highlighted you all your problems, and well, not all, but like key problems that can influence your business, like stop you from being operational, that leads you to pay like huge amount of money. And like there's things that every security program and MDR vendor have to bring with them. It's about the endpoint detection response. It's about network traffic analysis, because it's still required in a cloud. It's still
Hmm.
required for on-prem infrastructure. And what we have seen that like it's the same for bigger and smaller organization. When we ask them, hey guys, do like what is your estimated ransomware cost? Uh,
Mm.
like many of them, they say, I don't know, like how can I measure it? I'm not a malicious actor. But there is
Hmm.
very simple logic which malicious actors use to actually set you like a bill when you see this dark or blue or red screen with a ransom note. So like what they are doing, they're taking your public records, or they're relying on data, on your financial data exfiltrated from the organization. They see like your actual revenue. They understand that your like recovery time can be 3-4 weeks or more, and they just give you the estimate based um, on this bill. I know that Art is a master also in the negotiation with threat actors, and he can get like really better discounts for paying ransom. But
Hmm.
like it's very important to make this exercise internally to like evaluate what will be cost of ransom for your organization, to get a third party who can actually confirm that this is the actual number, and then you can take these numbers and bring it to your CFO to convince the like CFO, CEO, and board that like this investment is reasonable versus the risk versus the cost of daily or hourly business interruption. Um, so we built a Maxi as a platform to actually solve like four major problems. It's about a risk estimation, risk assessment, external attack surface management. It's about like helping with compliance, so like SOC and ISO. It's about managed detection response, like major thing that we do. and it's also about the like security operations automation. Automation is as Art mentioned, is a key element of successful recoverability, and and that's the thing that your top management will appreciate the most. Art, do you want to add something to it?
Yeah, so I think that this is a key part of your resilience plan is, that MDR as well as the recoverability. So the two of them together really make, recovery possible. If you don't have a detection response solution, including the human aspect of someone to actually look at it and have processes built to defend it, you're just going to constantly be in a state of recovery, which is actually a bad place to be. So we do have a couple slides on PBR, which is post breach recovery, and that's really one of the key things that Arium does. And just to breeze through here, planning for a breach, having disaster recovery and an incident response plan, both of them are going to be key to your strategy and being able to handle recovering from an incident. And they'll help you recover faster. There are several pieces of recovery, in that incident response cycle where, identifying, containing, eradicating, and recovering from an attack. And handling people in the midst of an attack is part of what we do, is dealing with your stakeholders when they're melting down and when they're having a personal crisis and your CFO is about to walk out the window because you're looking at huge losses. So there are some best practices, and I feel like to go through each of these, we could use another entire webinar to step through these. All right, can we jump to the Q&A now? I know we have some great questions.
Perfect. Yeah, I see
Yeah.
we have.
Yeah, I can queue them up for you here. Yeah, so one of them is Google just started using a big hammer to cut off employees from the internet. So what is the best way to handle internal threat? So if I'm going to speak to that really quickly, Google's trying to reduce the threat to their user base because they realize that their users are under constant attack, and there are threat actors like Lapsus, which their mode of operation is to attack an insider, get their creds, get access to a network. That is how they did so many of the attacks against big companies is really with insider threat. And so from my perspective, that's a good control that Google did, is really turn off internet access while they're at work, in order to prevent them from C2 communications, from phishing links, etc. But that probably is not going to be a long lasting control. It's probably just a mitigation they're putting in place now. I think that they're going to have to figure out another control set to identify those external communications that are problematic. But I'm thinking that it's really hard to recognize internal threat when it's happening. And I always use the same guidelines as you would use for fraud analysis. So the financial people that are more business minded in the room probably have taken some fraud training and understand the things to watch out for when somebody's committing fraud. Some risk factors that people have in their lives, some behavioral changes, things like that. So with insider threat, that's the kind of thing that I watch out for. But Nazar, do you have anything to add there?
But I just wanted to add that like there's a great technologies like Zscaler and somewhere where you can actually limit what is allowed employees to like to do. Because if you wanted to limit, if you started like using this big hammer, well,
Hmm.
like it makes sense to use it in a smart way, not cutting everyone from the internet, because people need internet to often to find answers. And there is I see like there is continuation to this question: how do you see AI ML technologies laying out in the cyber resiliency strategy?
Mhm.
It's a good question, because I want to like very often I see that AI is considered as a threat. So like AI will hack us, AI will kill
Mhm.
us. Like all of us have to consider right now AI ML as a tool set, as an assistance to help people be more efficient. If you are not efficient at all in your life, you are not organized, well, you will fail with all these tools. But if you
Mhm.
are efficient, these tools can save your time of your life
Mhm.
to spend more time with your kids and your family, which is like for people crucial. And if you don't have friends in real life, you can always use AI to ask others, like to ask what best CISOs will do to implement cyber resiliency
Mhm.
in their organization.
Yep.
So, like, do you agree?
Absolutely. So in my mind, the AI is something that everyone has to embrace right now. Yes, there are some risks behind it, but we're in a part of human history right now that if you do not embrace it and take advantage of the productivity gains with it, and do not start implementing R&D around AI in your companies, but if you're not using it for personal productivity as well, you're going to fall behind. You're going to be replaced. Companies that aren't implementing AI and ML techniques are going to be surpassed by the competitors that are. So it's just a fact right now that everyone has to embrace it. From a resilience strategy point of view, I think there's a lot of possibilities. So there's robotic process automation is basically taking processes and using automation to go through those business processes, and so those business processes can be resilience processes or recovery processes or monitoring responses, etc. Think of a SOAR that is doing your SIM response. That's really a robotic process automation system. It's just finely honed in on cybersecurity response. Um, as ML technologies and AI are being used more and more, those need to be a part of those responses. So right now we're using ML to factor, okay, what of these 10 million log entries are actually important, but AI is going to be handy in saying, okay, AI, please bring back this web app or this production system, and it can run through these playbooks, overcome obstacles, and go through that automation to bring that system back up. So I think that those technologies are going to be core to us going forward. But I know that a lot of people in IT operations haven't really started leveraging it for that purpose yet. So they've been using it for analyzing massive amounts of data, but not in the response yet. So I think that asking it, how are we going to respond, is really the next leap.
Like what I encourage everyone to use is to imagine the scenario when you are an Iron Man, you have a person now, Jarvis, and Jarvis is as assistant can always just give you the data, but this decision is on you, right? So like highlight some things that, hey Jarvis, what is the situation with our like favorable going, like what's going on like over the last night, is there something
Mhm.
I should be aware of? And like he will give you, okay, like there was like three suspicious logins from like Europe over the last night. You should take a look at it. And you like the key idea that you should be prepared to know what to ask, because very often if people don't know what to ask, they don't know the like computers at this moment, they could take the decision on your behalf,
Mhm.
but a person always wanted to have control over the decision. So be ready to take the responsibility, control over this, but use the technology to enable you to do this.
Yes. Yeah. Hey Jarvis, please restore these servers. Will be the next step, I think. Yep.
Yep, and to achieve this, they need like your experience to actually build this DevSecOps practice to automate all the routine and build the infrastructure as a code to be able to call Jarvis, like with one simple Jarvis or Siri, because you can integrate Siri or what is Azure technology, not
Yes.
Azure, Amazon's technology. Please remind
Yeah.
me.
Alexa. Yeah.
Alexa, yeah, Alexa.
Yeah.
So you can use API to integrate these things, and it will work. It can work smoothly.
Sounds like the next startup idea. Yeah, using AI for recovery. Awesome.
Yeah, there is a speech to text, and there is
Yep.
like language models. So
Mhm.
it will works really well together.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions here? Okay, yeah, the PPT, people, process, technology. We had mentioned, people, process, and technologies, but then, we kept on going down our geek, rabbit holes, and we kept on being nerds. So, really, we kept on focusing on technology rather than the business aspect. But yes, so especially in incident response and in recovery, it's very important to include the business. But in the planning phases, when you're coming up with that incident response plan and your DR plan, that really should be based around a business impact analysis and really understanding, okay, what are the critical things in your company? And a lot of this is a business discussion and talking to the stakeholders, talking to the board of directors, and talking to your executive team and saying, okay, what is really important here? And but it's also important to get down in the weeds with the individuals and say, okay, the sales team or the marketing team, what do you really need access to? What are you really doing? What is these core initiatives that are coming from the board, that are trickling down to you? What core systems are these? What are you doing? And then figuring out, okay, is this supporting a business critical goal? And then if it is, what are we doing to defend it? What are we doing to build it resiliently? If it's not a business critical goal, then it may not be worth your time focusing on. But if it is, then it's probably worth building some resilience around. So thinking about the people and getting involved with the people is core to that. But uh, on a process side, you know if you are into Six Sigma, you know, view resiliency projects as kind of a DMAIC project, where you're focusing on continuing to improve the resilience of any business process, whether it's your sales process, shipping, manufacturing, etc. But look at it from a cyber resilience point of view. Which of these systems, if they could be attacked, need to be upgraded or need to be improved? And then you can build a plan around that. But again, just focus on the ones that are actually core to the business or are actually going to impact the business's bottom line. But there are a lot of frameworks like the Gartner framework, like the MITRE framework, that like the incident response process, like the SANS also has an incident response process that we can use as a baseline process, and then take it and make it your own and say, okay, this is good, but it's not including this other thing that we need. So let's build it and make it our own. And the more you make it your own and include other stakeholders in that, and say, okay, what's important to you when we recover your business? What's actually important to you? Then it's going to become their incident response process, and then it becomes core to them. But yeah, I'm sorry that we did go down the kind of a nerd rabbit hole rather than illustrate it from the business point of view a lot. Yeah.
Um, uh, it's I believe everything you say is like the truth, and this is like really fabulous. It's really resonate with my experience and my thoughts. I have heard from my friends that like don't let a good crisis stop you for making a final transformation for,
Mm,
for your company, for your business, for your processes, for like for your life, right?
hmm.
So crisis is a opportunity, and
Yes.
like there are companies who exploit this and getting better from good to great,
Yep.
and there's company who really failed to do this, and they have these cases like you mentioned.
Yeah, don't let a good crisis go to waste. Yeah, learn from it, improve from it, use it to motivate you, use it to change your company, and use it to grow closer with your team and your people. Yeah.
I believe we have one more question, but it's a topic for absolutely separate discussion about DevSecOps
Okay.
best practices. Yeah, so let's keep it for a separate webinar.
Okay.
I wanted
Yeah.
to express my appreciation to you, Art, for
Mhm.
dedicating this time and paying it forward to community, to
Mhm.
bringing your unique knowledge and experience to cybersecurity society. So thank you for your time and being with us today.
You too, Nazar, and I'm really looking forward to learning more from you in the future on further webinars. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who attended and was with us today. If you have any questions, feel free to leave your comments on LinkedIn, get in touch with us, and let's make a world safer place together.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.